Carlson here. Happy Saturday. Time for another live stream. Sorry I was a few minutes late getting situated here. I was just downstairs. I'm working on organizing my movie collection, so it's been a little hectic lately, but here I am, and we're going to continue our live streams. This week we're looking at an issue of the Star Wars Insider, this being issue number 86, and this is from March and April of 2006. Again, just to give some context, this was many, many years before Disney was acquired by Lucasfilm, so nice little look back in time. Nice close-up there. Of course, we got Yoda on the cover of this one. You know, the Clans of Boba Fett, A New Order. What was the theater there? The posters of Episode 6. It was the posters of Episode 5 featurette in the previous issue. So I guess that's in keeping with the series. On the back, they got an ad for Kuat Drive Yards, which is the name of one of the manufacturers in the Star Wars universe. And this is like an ad for a miniatures game. You got an ATST Walker down there. Hey there, buddy, says Chris. Hey there, back. Inside here we have an ad for a game called Star Wars Empire at War. I've never played that particular game before. Here's the table of contents, as well as an ad for Cloud City Collectibles, which is in Norcross, Georgia. I don't know if that store's still in business or not. This issue is almost 20 years old. Like your watch. Oh, thank you very much. There's a transitions article from Francis Mao, the editorial director. Got a nice little cartoon down there of, I assume that's supposed to be him with a bantha. On this side you have an ad for the Unleashed Battle Packs. Again, there's a lot of Star Wars merch that I myself was not familiar with and never got, so. Why do bad guys get the coolest toys? What Iron Maiden is that? If you're talking about the things sitting next to me, these are books. This is singer Bruce Dickinson's autobiography, and this is the Flight 666 book, which is about their touring airplane. I actually covered those a little in my last Battle Jacket Kit episode as well, so check that out if you haven't watched it yet. And then there's also a Galactic Cruise Dream Vacation that has guests like Jeremy Bulloch and Matthew Wood. Matthew Wood, of course, sound guy for Lucasfilm, who's probably best known as the voice of General Grievous. Jeremy Bulloch, I believe, has since passed away, if I'm not mistaken. There's a Lucasfilm Animation Singapore ad here that they officially opened over there. I don't know if that's still there on account of Disney acquiring Lucasfilm. And they got the Force FX lightsabers from Master Replicas. You got Luke, Mace Windu, Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker. And it says they're even making a double Darth Maul saber. Do you read a lot? Honestly, not really. I used to read a lot more than I do now. Yeah, Industrial Light and Magic turns 30. White House awards International Medal of Technology to ILM. Spike TV to air the entire Star Wars saga. George Lucas attends Martin Luther King Jr. National Memorial Fundraiser. And then there's a signature series model of Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, the TIE Advanced X1 prototype. I know that's actually playable in some of the Rogue Squadron video games. It's one of the few TIE Fighters that actually has shields. Next to the Jedi, I got like a young adult series here on the series. They made a lot of young adult and children's Star Wars books over the years. There's also production artwork from the Tartakovsky Clone Wars animated series. So I guess those are like animation cells. Not to be confused with the canon CGI Clone Wars series that came out probably about 2 or 3 years after this. So this is before the character of Ahsoka existed. You use thumbtacks for your posters. That depends on the posters. Some of them are thumbtacked up if they're just like the fairly light, cheap plastic ones. Paper ones, I mean. But then like some of the fancier ones that I want to keep intact, I'll put in frames and use a nail. They got some parody artwork here. One with Palpatine telling guards to prepare his bat. That's actually a little scary if you think about it. They got to look here at the battle between Yoda and Darth Sidious in Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, which at the time was the newest Star Wars film because, again, this is before Disney acquired Lucasfilm, so There'd be a long time before there was another theatrical movie, unless you count the Clone Wars CG pilot that was in theaters for a limited run. Here they've got, look at Boba Fett and talk about the Mandalorians. Of course, the whole Mandalorian lore has been completely rewritten since Disney took over the franchise, and we've even got a show called The Mandalorian now, although it doesn't revolve around Boba Fett specifically. More Mandalorian stuff here, and then there's a look at some R2-D2 type droids here. You're going to show tonight. If you're talking about concerts, I'm probably going to go see a Led Zeppelin tribute band with Brian Tishy, world's greatest drummer. Guy likes to drink, but he knows how to drum. Here's a look at some more, Mandalorian type stuff. And again, this is also before you had the character of Sabine Wren from Star Wars Rebels. They got an ad here for the book Star Wars Outbound Flight. And I guess they got like a book club where you can get several books for a bargain. I guess this is kind of like how you used to have the Columbia House Record Club. And I assume this is probably not going on anymore, especially in this day and age of ebooks and everything. And on the back here, they got some other books here. And yeah, not all of them are Star Wars necessarily. I see some Stephen King stuff. And I see a J.R.R. Tolkien book, the guy that did Lord of the Rings. There's an Avengers thing as well. And then the whole Mandalorian article continues on the other side. More Mandalorian stuff, and then there's an ad for Brian's Toys. Star Wars Collection came out on DVD in 2004. I know because I actually owned that collection. And that collection actually had a bonus disc with a really nice documentary on it called Empire of Dreams. I don't know if that's still available, but that's a great documentary that's well worth watching. A New Order. This just deals with, since all the prequels had come out, what order should you watch the movies in? Should you start with the classic trilogy and then go back to the prequels? Or do you start with the prequels and just work your way forward? And that's an interesting concept, and they look at a few different ways that you could view this and the different perspectives you'd have coming in. Not going to get into every single little detail here, but this is pretty interesting. And I've often contemplated that myself. Then we have, of course, some interesting stuff here regarding the various scenes throughout the trilogy. Of course, if you watch the original trilogy first, you're not going to know how powerful the Emperor is, so you're not going to be expecting him to get pelted with Force lightning near the end of the movie. But then, of course, if you've watched the prequels first, you know this guy is Darth Vader's master. He's a Lord of the Dark Side as well. So, stuff like that. And there's some interesting reading material. Yeah, Yoda's right arm. This just deals with, the CG technology they used to bring Yoda to life in the prequels, making him a CG character versus a puppet like he was in the original trilogy. And actually, when they did the Blu-rays, they replaced the puppet in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, with a CG version, because the puppet in that movie always looked a little off, so I actually support that decision. I just remember when I saw Yoda do that CG battle with Count Dooku, that's when I really realized how far CG had come. I mean, you could even see, the lightsaber being reflected in Yoda's eyes, and I thought that was just the pinnacle of special effects, and we've come even farther since then. And there's, a few more Yoda things there. And then we got this, Q&A section. They call this Ask the Master. They ask about the mural in Palpatine's office. They ask about the alien species that buys Luke's land speeder in A New Hope. They talk about, what would make Darth Vader think Obi-Wan trained Luke? Isn't Vader the impression that he killed Obi-Wan? Questions like that. And then, they talk about, do Palpatine and Dooku have first names? And they say, Dantius was used for Palpatine's first name on some websites, and Jard Dooku. But they also say these are not canon. And of course, in the official Disney canon, Palpatine's first name is Sheev, S-H-E-E-V. Are the DVDs the original? No, the DVDs are altered versions of the special editions that were released in 1997. Because There were the original theatrical versions, which of course had a few audio edits over the years. Then in 1997, you had the special editions, which added some new content and cleaned up and fixed some stuff. When the DVDs came out, there were a few more changes, though nothing quite as shocking as what they did with those, CG enhancements in the 1997 edition. Although in the 2004 DVD releases, they actually did re-record the sequence of Palpatine talking to Darth Vader in The Empire Strikes Back, because Ian McDiarmid did not play Palpatine in Empire Strikes Back, where he's only depicted as a hologram. In the original version, before they added in Ian McDiarmid, he was actually portrayed by a woman wearing a special mask with chimpanzee eyes superimposed over her face. And of course, the voice was dubbed by an actor named Clive Revill. And Clive Revill has done several acting and voice acting roles. He may have passed away a few years ago. I'm not totally sure. I'm going to have to look into that. And then eventually, when they put the series out on 4K, there were a few very, very minor changes, the biggest one being during the infamous Han or Greedo shot burst sequence, they actually added Greedo saying something in an alien language. So, yeah, a few minor additional changes over the years. There's never been like an official DVD of the original theatrical cuts, although the 2006 reissues of the DVDs did have non-anamorphic widescreen versions of the original cuts. The VHS tapes are the original. Yes, if you're talking about the 1995 or so VHS tapes. The special edition 1997 tapes are the ones that have the modifications added in. And then right here you have more of these questions, like the explanations for Senator Amidala's death, how the Hutts became a threat, what happens to the Gungans. So yeah, just more various fan questions. Some of these are pretty boneheaded, where people just didn't pay attention to the movies, but some of them are actually pretty well thought out here. Like someone asked about how, Maul and Dooku were lured over to the dark side and what the incentive there would have been. Darth Maul was basically raised in the dark side from birth, according to the Disney canon, because he was born from the Dathomirian Night Sisters and raised by them. Originally, I guess he was born on Iridonia. And I don't know exactly how that syncs with the older canon. And then, Count Dooku, they released a canon, I guess it's almost like a stage play called Dooku Jedi Lost, and that deals with how he initially came to the dark side and the royalty that he came from and his disillusionment with things. So which would be the original? The originals would be the ones that were released in theaters originally in 1977, 1980, and 1983, respectively. And the closest thing you can get to those is the old 1995 VHS tapes. But if possible, you should try to get the widescreen versions, because Star Wars does not look good in a cropped full-screen format. Just watch the opening crawl text and you'll see what I mean. That's pretty much what converted me to know that I needed to be watching my movies in an original aspect ratio format. Moving on down the list. Unknown Soldier, the story of General Grievous by Abel G. Pena. So I guess this is just like fiction regarding the birth of General Grievous. I'm pretty sure his story has been retconned since Lucasfilm was acquired by Disney. They do have some pretty cool illustrations in here. This is continued here, and they talk about, cast of characters and everything. Star Wars, 30 years and not halfway there. This is a look back at some collectibles from the franchise. Yeah, no, there is no potential end to your collection. And of course, with the arrival of the later Disney films and TV series, that remark's become even more true. They got the vinyl records of the original trilogy here. I'll look at some more figurines and, fan art and things. Trials of Obi-Wan. I guess this is like a computer game. Again, this is not something I played, but you got some various characters. You got Jabba down there. It looks like with a protocol droid to be his translator. Posters of Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Here you have the original poster that has the early title, Revenge of the Jedi, which of course they ended up not using that title because a Jedi does not seek revenge. I actually have a reproduction of this poster hanging up downstairs in my place. Again, what I own is a reproduction. It's not one of the valuable originals. And here's some more poster art from the franchise. You'll notice something very interesting in these. Luke is actually holding a blue lightsaber, but by this point he switched to using a green lightsaber. They made his lightsaber green for Return of the Jedi because they didn't think a blue lightsaber would show up well against the blue sky during the opening scenes on Tatooine when they're rescuing Han Solo. But he still has the blue saber in a lot of the movie poster art. And even if you watch some of the old trailers, his saber is blue. Interesting lightsaber trivia there. And actually, on that note, if you look really closely at the Revenge of the Jedi poster, they both have the wrong colored sabers. Vader has the blue saber, Luke has the red saber. Because back then, they only cared about creating, impactful, good-looking images and not so much about continuity and consistency. Although, ironically, doing it this way was actually somewhat appropriate because this is the movie where Vader, at the end, returns to the light side and Luke very nearly turns to the dark side. So I guess reversing the colors here was appropriate, even if not intentionally so. Here's some more posters that have some of the close-ups of some of the credits and everything. I guess if you're trying to find like original posters, if you're a collector and so forth. Yeah, Sideshow's 12-inch series takes center stage. I guess here they actually made a line of Transformers with Star Wars characters like Darth Vader's TIE Fighter that turns into Darth Vader. And then you have, Boba Fett turns into Slave One. I know they don't call it Slave One anymore because apparently people are offended by the word slave, even though in the Star Wars saga, Anakin starts out as a slave and nobody bats an eye. But to me, it's always going to be Slave One. And to any true fan, it should be the same way. And they got some more busts and figurines down there. Here they have a look at the scene in Revenge of the Sith at the beginning of the movie where the Jedi Knights go to rescue Senator Palpatine. Of course, at the time, they don't know he's actually Darth Sidious. Here they got a nice green screen shot because a ton of the prequels were shot on green screens. Although, of course, when Disney took over, they went back more to using practical sets and model making, which I think was a good move. Here they got some, concept art and costumes. I assume these are all from... I was going to say they're all from Revenge of the Sith, but it looks like there's... is that supposed to be Boba Fett on that little cycle there? No, it just says Retro Rocket, and it says, that's, original Ralph McQuarrie art. The guy did all the concept art and paintings. Yeah, Bantha Tracks, Best of the Year. So this is just like fandom and conventions and things, so there's some pretty cool stuff there. Here they've got, Celebration 3, so I guess this is like a big celebration of, Revenge of the Sith. They've got someone there, arm wrestling with Tamura Morrison, who portrayed Jango Fett, and of course later redubbed the voice of Boba Fett for the DVD release of the classic trilogy. And then Tamura Morrison, of course, returned to play Boba Fett in The Mandalorian and Book of the Boba Fett on Disney+. They've got some, editorial stuff here, and they've got an ad for a Battlestar Galactica card game. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Battlestar Galactica started out as like this TV series that was sort of a really dated Star Wars ripoff of sorts, but then they made a new Battlestar Galactica series that was actually much fun. Hi, hey Taylor, what are your thoughts on Disney talking about doing a new trilogy? Do you think this will include the Rey character being a totally different time period? That's hard to say. I mean, there have been talks about Lucasfilm is going to do Star Wars movies that are in various time periods. Like I know they're actually planning on doing a Mandalorian and Grogu movie. There was talk about doing a Rey movie, I guess like with Rey supposedly training a new generation of Jedi and things like that. But I heard that was removed from their release calendar, so that might not be the case. I know Patty Jenkins, who directed the Wonder Woman movies, was supposed to do a Rogue Squadron movie, but I don't know where in the canon that would be set, because Rogue Squadron stuff is generally like, between episodes 4 and 5, and then also there's some stuff in the old canon that was right after the end of Return of the Jedi. So there are plans for movies. I don't know how many of them will actually come to fruition. I know the Solo movie bombed at the box office, so they really rethought the whole Star Wars story, side story movie thing there. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see Daisy Ridley back as Rey at some point. I know that character got bashed by a lot of fans, but honestly, I don't dislike Disney Star Wars. I think for the most part they've done a pretty good job. I mean, I even love The Last Jedi, which I know a lot of people didn't, although it has a very high critic score if you go on a site like Rotten Tomatoes. So I do think, again, we will see a new Star Wars movie, or some sort of Star Wars media, maybe a TV series with Rey played by Daisy Ridley again. Personally, I really like that character. The only thing I really didn't like was the retcons to her origin that they made in Rise of Skywalker regarding her parentage and, of course, who her grandfather was. I won't get into that here, but again, that's my 2 cents. So we got an ad for if you want to subscribe to the Star Wars Insider, which is the magazine we're reading right now. They got some exclusive figures here. You got Baron Papanoida, who's the character that was excellent. Yeah, I hope we get more Star Wars media. It has been a while. Some of the Disney Plus stuff's been hit and miss, but I really am looking forward to seeing if we get another season of The Mandalorian. You know, Andor was pretty good. I need to go back and watch that again. I kind of rushed through it before. Even Book of Boba Fett, which got a mixed reception, I quite liked because it reinvented that character. Finally established he did survive the Sarlacc in Return of the Jedi. And yeah, they got... Who do they have figures of here? They got, characters that are played by the Lucasfilm. Yeah, again, Baron Papanoida is the blue-skinned guy that George Lucas played. And then, Chi Ikwe, played by Katie Lucas. I think that's his daughter, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Tyr Tennell, played by Amanda Lucas. I'm not totally sure, which one's the mother and daughter, if those are both his daughters. I know George Lucas has been, divorced and remarried. His first wife actually worked as an editor on the original Star Wars back in the day. And then Zet Jukasa, who is Jet Lucas, that's his son. He plays the Jedi Knight, the young Jedi that defends Bail Organa trying to escape the Jedi Temple in Revenge of the Sith. Here's pictures of those characters and these exclusive figures. And Baron Papanoida, the character played by George Lucas, he was later retconned to be a race called the Pantorans. The Pantorans were featured pretty prominently in the CG Clone Wars animated series. And if you look at the name Zet Jukasa, it's basically Jet Lucas. Yeah, I feel like everything is hinging on the Mandalorian movie. The series really went a long ways to bringing back the fan base division that has been there since The Last Jedi. That's an interesting thought. And I really have liked a lot of what they've been doing. The Mandalorian is probably the best of the Disney Plus series they've done so far. Of course, I don't know if we'll get more Mandalorian stuff or not because, of course, Pedro Pascal is one of the busiest guys in Hollywood. I mean, he just appeared in Gladiator 2, which just came out in theaters, so that's a man who's hard to keep down because he literally never stops working. And he's actually, I believe, playing Mr. Fantastic in the new Fantastic Four movie, so that's going to be pretty cool. I mean, the MCU, which of course is also owned by Disney, is in a bit of a dire straits right now, and they're trying to save it. Deadpool last year was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing that new Fantastic Four movie, especially since it's going to be set in the 1960s. So what else we got in this magazine? Here we've got some collector's picks. I mean, you got like a Darth Vader hockey jersey. Got some like balls here. I'm guessing these are like, these are shot glasses. Then you got a model of Boba Fett's ship, Slave One. Arc of the Clone Wars series. You got a C-3PO bust and some branded rings of like Stormtrooper and Clone Trooper faces. And again, to me, Boba Fett's spaceship, it's always going to be Slave One. I don't care how much they try to downplay that name. I'm always going to call it Slave One. And then we got more stuff here. You got the DVD release of the old Droids cartoon. You got the DVD release of Revenge of the Sith. More figurines, more games. Some more collectibles and figurines here, including, the Star Wars, Clone Wars, the Tartakovsky 2D animated series, and then Star Wars Battlefront 2, the video game, which came out around the same time as Revenge of the Sith. And that's actually end of this magazine. Again, you got that ad for Quat Drive Yards on the back, the company in the universe that makes the ATST. And there's a close-up there if you want to see that miniature that they're selling. So that brings us to the end of this issue. For next week's live stream, I've got this one right here. This is number 87, and this came out in May and June of 2006, so that'll be the subject of next week's live stream. Does anybody else have any additional comments or parting shots before I end the live stream? It's always nice to get some interaction on here, and I'm glad to see there were a few people that hopped on and had some questions, comments, and so forth. Any last-minute comments at all? And remember, this video will be available for viewing after the live stream ends, so feel free to comment on that if you have any last-minute thoughts you didn't think of during the live stream. If there is nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream at this time. Again, this is Taylor T. Carlson. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. I do have an ongoing series on here I try to do monthly called The Battle Jacket Kid, where I talk about my love of battle jackets, rock and roll, pop culture. I do a lot of unboxings, mostly for home video and movie releases. Again, thanks so much for those of you that did tune in. This is Taylor T. Carlson, and I will see you on next weekend's live stream. Thanks again.